I'm sorry to bring it to you, but there is, in the end, no excuse. So in this video, I'll be talking about how I painted a whole army in 1 week, which, looking back at it, looks really incredible. So you can see the army picture here. You can also really easily see probably that it doesn't look like one of my best painted armies. But then again, I painted this in just one single week. So I got 90 of these Saurian Warriors. Um, about 60 of them I got them from a friend because I believe he regularly sells miniatures and nobody really wants these anymore. And then some others I did manage to pick off a second-hand website for like €10 for the 30 of them or so. So in the end, that was like €10. And this is just a cheap fun army for me to play at events that are more oriented towards fun. So the skinks in the front, they're also like €5 or €10 in total. And then the creatures in the back on the right, you see the two dinos, those were €5 each, I think. The models on the left I still had lying around. The slam came with the Saurians. So in the end, this is a under €50 build, which is insane to me, because that is really cheap. But that's mostly because they're models that, yeah, they're not the easiest to paint with a really impressive paint scheme. So I have seen pictures of these models around on the internet that are really impressive, and also I've seen there's a guy in Utrecht or who plays in Zeiss actually, who has a really nice looking Saurian ancient army with these models. But I didn't really want to spend too much effort on trying to make this army just look impressive on the first go, and then once you go for the details, once you zoom in a bit closer, it's in some places not that impressive to say the least. But then again, let's just go quickly through it how I managed to do this in 1 week. So I went for a very simple paint scheme, but then I think lava is one of the things that you can make really simple for yourself. And now the attention is mostly drawn towards the bases. The bases give the impressive effect, whilst they're also quite easy to do at the same time. So how do you construct just the models before? So here you can see some drafts of what the characters on the big dinos were going to look like. So I just have some Saurus cavalry that I could get from a friend in a trade for some Stormcast Eternal guys, but then the Chaos version. Managed to trade that for the riders of these dinos. Dinos I got at the toy store actually. And then the first thing in the process is to just paint a whole lot of bases. So the bases themselves, I got them secondhand, or I got them from Alibaba, just cheap, like 150 bases for €10 or so. They have been fitted with cork. You do just a initial brush with just a thick brush with hobby paint, so not even miniature paint, just hobby paint. First layer of red, then a layer of orange, then a layer of yellow, and then well, you can see how it turned out. Next step is to just prime your models in a decent priming method. So I tried to go a little bit more extreme with this. So the idea was that I would prime them with a granite tone all over, and then give them a zenithal highlight with a blue, with a bit of a lighter blue, and then another zenithal highlight on top that's a little bit lighter with a light gray. In the end, they turned out a little bit dark because the last gray that I used was a little bit too light, too dark, I think. So here's another picture of them having been primed, all of it. They've all been primed in the same way. And here you can see the blue really coming through a little bit. So the blue was quite a bit more strong than you can perceive on these pictures. But then with the last spray over them, that got toned down a little bit. I like the slight blue that is present in the models to contrast the warm red and yellow in the bases. yeah, and then you just have to paint. So I kept it really, really simple for me because I had to paint 90 models. Um, I decided that I would want to pick out the eyes with a very simple glow effect in the sense that I just painted them orange all over. So from far away, you might be able to perceive the fact that they seem a little bit orange glowy. Um, and then I didn't really want to just have one kind of scale variation. I didn't want to spend a lot of time on picking out different scales, so I used black, orange, and red to pick out the scales. So maybe orange should have been yellow here because the orange actually resembles the red a little bit too much for my taste. Um, and then to fit that, I went for bronze weapons and armor. So they just got some wristbands, some axes that I just did in one color just to make the process easier. Um, and in the end, yeah, from close up, this is what you see. So it's definitely not the most charming, but then once you zoom out, it gets way better. Then for the characters, the dinos were kind of done in the same way as the bases. I could have spent some more attention on these, but I also wanted to keep them in line with the army, so I kept it quite simple on these models too. Some spare skinks I used to spruce up the bases a little bit to make it a bit more interesting looking. And then yeah, in the end, this is the army that you get. So it was a hell of a journey, and it was definitely um, not needed to do this in a week. But now with the Corona times, it was. I think I did it like a month ago or so. So this was still the time where we had to stay inside for most part of the week. I could only go out for groceries and didn't have any distractions like restaurants and other ventures open. So that was a good opportunity to do this, in my opinion. And as you can see, yeah, it's definitely not the best painted army that I have, but just fielding 90 Saurian Warriors is quite impressive on the battlefield. And I think it's yeah, it turned out quite well for the amount of work put in. So if you don't like painting, it can be pulled off in a week. Just I think the major thing here is that I focused mostly even on the bases rather than on the models because the models were so old that they don't really age that well with the rest of the models that come out nowadays for the different game systems. But then again, the models that are released now are also way more detail intensive than they were back in the day. So this was definitely an easier venture to go on rather than the same venture with some newer models. Like the Stormcast, there are some videos on YouTube you can find on painting Stormcast Eternals also in stone colors. So kind of similarly to what I did, just you spray paint the Stormcast Eternal models just with a zenithal highlight, um, and then you give them some glowing effects. You give them some deviation from the uh, primer, and you might want to pick out the weapons, um, giving you a force that can still look quite okay. There's one guy who did it with moss, I believe. Also, he put moss all over the Stormcast Eternals in specific places to distract the eye a little bit, and I think that really also worked very well. So if you're not really into painting, you can also do this. So it's definitely not something that you're gonna do within a week without any preparation. So I did think about this quite a lot actually. Just how to do the bases, how to keep it simple, refraining from putting in extra detail, and just restricting yourself, and then you can do it within a week. So in the end, I did manage to paint an army in a week. If you have still at home an army lying around that you still need to get painted, but you can't find motivation for, yet you don't really want it to have a extremely high quality of paint job, I challenge you to paint the army, trying to do it in a week, maybe going for 2 weeks, and send me the results. I would be really curious to see what people come up with. I hope this is a bit of an inspiration for the less talented painters. I mean, you can still pull it off. And if you want any help, any tips, instructions on how I did specific things, just please shout out.